Good evening, Paul Higgins with ABC News. Well, it might not have reached the predicted numbers, but thousands of people defied coronavirus warnings to march through Melbourne's CBD. The Black Lives Matter protest followed similar protests in the United States, but there was none of the violence or property damage seen in US cities as the protest moved peacefully from State Parliament through the city to Flinders Street. And while police still plan to fine the organisers for breaching COVID-19 directions, those who took part are hoping their message did get through. Elias Kluwer reports.
It's a global movement making plenty of noise, but today's Black Lives Matter rally in Melbourne began with a minute's silence. They were told not to come, but they came out in force.
For 432 deaths. That's one every single month for 29 years.
About 10,000 people defied COVID-19 restrictions to protest on the steps of Parliament in solidarity with global demonstrations sparked by the death of George Floyd and seeking justice much closer to home for the Indigenous Australians who have died in custody.
It took the murder of George Floyd, an African-American man, to put the spotlight on Australia's shame.
No, Mr. Morrison! Australia is not the United States, but Australia does have its own long, dark, brutal past of oppression.
People did what they could to stay safe, but maintaining 1.5 metres distance wasn't quite as easy.
I'm willing to risk my health so that another black person isn't killed in custody.
I don't want to put anyone at risk, but I just feel like we have to be here.
I made sure that none of my elders came with me to make sure that they're not at risk of getting this.
This is a much bigger problem than a few hundred people dying from coronavirus. This has been going on for 250 years, oppression, so I want that to stop, and I'm here to fight that.
It's really disappointing that there weren't other safer ways to send a powerful message about this issue than gathering in a mass protest that is putting public health at risk.
No justice! No peace! No justice!
As the rally pulsed through the streets of Melbourne, regional towns across Victoria were also showing support. In Mildura, about 200 people gathered. These aren't the first Black Lives Matter rallies in Melbourne, and this movement now is about 6 years old, but the organisers say that with the backdrop of the pandemic, they're hoping these protests can affect some kind of change.
No justice, no peace!
It's great people are supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, but you need to support this after this whole situation.
Victoria Police maintained a large presence throughout the event, but the protest moved through Melbourne peacefully and ended with a traditional smoking ceremony.
Always was! Always will be!
And Elias Kluwer joins us now from Flinders Street Station, where that rally has just wrapped up. Elias, what have the police had to say about today's protest?
Yeah, good evening, Paul. Well, the crowd has dispersed, but they were at this intersection behind me for about an hour after the rally. So police say they are generally happy with the behaviour of demonstrators. There's been no reports of property damage or violence, and they made no arrests, but they are concerned that this event went ahead in the first place in defiance of Chief Health Officer guidelines and social distancing rules. They've now moved to issue $1,600 fines to each of the organisers and say it'll investigate further if any more sanctions or penalties should be imposed. Now, we've spoken to the organisers a short time ago who say they have no comment and nothing to add, so I guess we'll see how this pans out in the coming days. Paul?
Elias Kluwer at Flinders Street. Elias, thank you.